Niels,
Hey,
finally, I would say this conversation has been long overdue, and I think it was partially or even mainly my responsibility. But yeah, for months I've been excited to have this conversation.
thanks. Yeah, we push it over the summer, I think.
Yeah, because well, we will dive into it during the conversation, but you the word status quo has no meaning at time to Momo, that's for sure. But
Perfect. No
let's
moment.
first things first. Let's build let's get to know you, the human being Niels, a little bit better. How do you think that other people describe you?
Well, 2 years ago, I was on a business retreat, and one of the coaches described me as a silent force with assertiveness. And I guess that's a good description of me.
Well, and so the silent force, I think I get that. What do you mean with the assertiveness?
Um, I think that I'm an humble leader. So yeah, um, never a dull moment with me. So I'm always looking forward to the future, what I can do, what kind of impact I can have. So um, I think, yeah, on the one hand, I'm indeed humble and a silent force, but um, yeah, never a dull moment.
Okay. And if I turn the question around, what do you love most about your friends?
So I have a group of 12 friends that I've known for about 20 years. And I think the nice thing is that yeah, we all have grown into very different human beings, but we still see each other regularly. And every year go on a long weekend trip. So, for instance, a few weeks ago, we went to Marrakesh with each other. Um, yeah, always big fun. And I also really like that, to see my friends to not think about business too much. So it helps me to think about other stuff.
Hmm. We share that with each other. Also, a very close group of friends since I was 13, 14 years old, and super diverse. And with one exception, none of them work in, like, say, the business corporate world. And it's always, sometimes I have these internal conflicts about things that I'm dealing with at work, and I put them on the table and I get these very simple common sense answers or feedbacks, and right away I'm grounded. It's like, ah, yeah, 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 making it too complex again. um One last question on you, Niels, the human being. When was the last time you felt judged, and how did you handle that?
Yeah. I've been in the media a lot with my company. A few months ago, there was quite a bit of attention again because of the merger we announced with Time to Momo. And I think the reactions to any media post are always about, I think, 90% positive and 10% negative. So I try not to care too much about the negative stuff. However, when people question my integrity, then I find it really difficult not to care.
Hmm. So your strategy is, don't give it too much attention, but
In your head, it's very easy to you always remember the negative stuff more than the positive stuff. But I always try to remember that it's about 90% versus 10%. So I have to tell that to myself, and then yeah, I'm okay.
okay. Well, if you ever need someone to talk to when things get rough, feel free to contact me and just have a chat. If one of your 12 friends is
Yeah, yeah.
not available. Okay, let's talk about Time to Momo. Could you briefly tell your story and how it came about?
It all started with a LinkedIn post. So It was right when Corona started. I made a beautiful trip to Japan. So I was kind of a Corona refugee, and I was able to make a great trip in Japan for 4 weeks, and then we had to come back to the Netherlands. And one of the first things that I read in the media was that Booking.com was applying for Corona support by the Dutch government, which they got 65 million. Yeah, and that made me so mad because I know that the company in the years before were giving dividends, billions of dividends to their shareholders. So I wrote a LinkedIn message very quickly in 10 minutes, and I stated that yeah, it was a bloody shame in my opinion, and if I got 1,000 likes on my LinkedIn message, then I would consider a crowdfunding campaign. That was what the message said. And then within a few hours, I was held to that promise. So in the end, 40,000 people liked my message. I think 2.5 million people saw it. Yeah, and then it all went very quickly. So we took the time to gather a team and prepare that crowdfunding campaign, and we raised 2 million euros as starting capital, thanks to 1,500 crowdfunders. So yeah, then we had the money to build our ideas, because it was only an idea. There was no plan. There was no nothing. So and then we start building it, an alternative for Booking.com. So we are basically also a hotel bookings platform, focusing on city trips.
That's great. That's a crazy story.
Yeah.
So some things I noted down. First and foremost is there's a lot of bad publicity on social media. I mean, the platforms, right? That it brings about a lot of negativity and toxicity. So I'm super. Although I see what people are referring to, I feel we're under highlighting also the many positive effects that these platforms have. So I'm super happy to hear that social media here had such a positive impact on you and on the travel business, hopefully in the as a whole. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I agree, and I also think that if I look at all the platforms, I think LinkedIn is still a platform where there is, percentage wise, I think the most positive. There's not a lot of hate there, so
No.
I hope we can keep it that way.
Yeah, indeed. Maybe a little less quotes. But
I think it helps because it's also partly like a digital resume, right? So
yeah.
you're there front and square with your name, your employer. So I think that helps to keep it a bit normal.
How did you feel, if you still remember, how did you feel when you saw the likes just ramping up and realizing that, okay, now I might have to go and do it? So at that moment, and also, how did you feel when you raised the 2 million euros? So those
Yeah.
two moments.
So the first moment, of course, I couldn't believe it. I mean, so I called a friend of mine who is in LinkedIn advertising. I think it was after 15 or 20 minutes. And there were, I think, at that moment 200 or 300 likes. So I called him. So it's kind of a lot, right? And he was like, "Oh my God, what is happening? I have never seen this in my whole career, not even with the biggest campaigns." So, and I was asking him, "What do you think? Do I need to block the rest of the day to respond?" And he said, "The rest of the day, the rest of the week." And he was right in the end. So
Well, the rest of your life.
the rest of my life. So and I also remember that I was kind of in the beginning. I was reacting to everybody, and then once I hit the refresh button, then it just exploded. So I couldn't see like how many new comments and likes were added. So in the end, I couldn't respond anymore because the LinkedIn platform it just crashed if I loaded more comments and more comments. So it was kind of scary. So oh my God, this got so much attention, and then also I think the next day journalists were calling. Yeah, that was a new arena for me. I mean,
And just
I've never.
to repeat, that LinkedIn post was an inspiration in the moment, right?
Yeah,
You just shared what you felt,
yeah.
and
In 10
that's it.
minutes, there was no plan behind it. No.
Oh, all those marketing people listening to this conversation, thinking I'm spending millions of euros trying to get attention for my product, and this guy comes along.
Yeah,
But it means that you really hit a nerve. I mean,
yeah.
it's as simple as that. And then fast forward, you raise the 2 million euros.
Yeah, of
What
course, a
was,
lot of responsibility comes with that. So, um, yeah, a lot of people invested their savings in our company. So I feel a lot of responsibility to make it into a success and to give them a nice return.
what's in your opinion? Well, no, what is an opinion you have on crowdsourcing that you rarely share? Is there something that you haven't shared yet about your journey in crowdsourcing?
I think people who invest money in your crowdfunding are not necessarily also your customers. So in our case, there are many people who have invested in us to make the platform economy more fair, but almost never sleep in a hotel. um, so I was hoping that those two would be a little bit more connected. I think in some cases they are, but I think nevertheless, the crowdfunding is a wonderful tool. I mean, it's so much more than just money because you build a community and you validate your ideas before you start, and it's also a start of your marketing campaign. So yeah, you can do marketing and raise funds at the same time and build a community at the same time. So that's, yeah, I think it's really powerful. But yeah, people who have the money to invest in companies are not necessarily always the same as the customers you target.
I made similar misassumptions in the past in businesses that I was part of, um, assuming that the people investing or participating in the company would bring with them a lot of business opportunities, and it was rarely the case. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a good lesson to learn. But also interesting that crowdsourcing is you, and sourcing capital and the marketing campaign and building a community.
Yeah.
I'm not very familiar with crowdsourcing, and that's very interesting to me. You mentioned a key word, I think, the platform economy. I feel you need to elaborate a little bit on that for the listeners.
Yeah.
What is it?
So for me, I mean, why I was so angry at Booking.com was not only because of the Corona support they were getting. It's all, I mean, I'm in tech, and a lot of big tech companies started with a great idea, a lot of innovation, but over the years, a lot of them, yeah, lost that because of the focus on short-term profits and shareholder value, and so it's a bigger problem in the platform economy that yeah that we see all these dark patterns and dark behavior from companies.
So when
And
you
I
talk
think
about platform businesses, you talk about booking.com. What are other examples Is Airbnb an
Airbnb,
example?
Uber, Google, Facebook.
And what is the most dark pattern and dark behavior that you see across those businesses?
I think using a monopoly position to um, extract more money from customers or from sellers on the platform.
Okay. So they squeeze them. And if you would
They squeeze because nobody can do without the platform anymore.
yeah. And if you would be the devil's advocate for your arguments, so if you would put yourself in their shoes, what would they argue against that? So if you steelman their case, what
Well,
would
well,
they
they
say?
they always they always say, well, if people don't think the rates are fair, then they can go to somebody else. But that's not that. I mean, for instance, in the hotel business, some hotels, especially in cities, are dependent on platforms for like 80 to 90% of their bookings. So yeah, there's not really a choice to not be on those platforms.
Yeah, they don't have room to negotiate because they're so dependent on these
Yeah.
platforms. But obviously, the platforms could say, yeah, well, I mean, we just did a really good job, and
Yeah.
uh, without us, they wouldn't have all those
So
customers visiting their
I think the
hotels.
problem is of course it's okay to make money, and it's also okay to make a lot of money. That's okay. But um, when you're only focusing on extracting money in the short term for shareholders, and that's your only focus, and you're not looking at employees anymore, you're trying to avoid taxes, and you um, um, are not fair to sellers. I mean, then yeah, I think it's the wrong mentality.
Mm. Yeah,
Mm.
and I think consumers are starting to feel it. At least I'm when now I go on Airbnb, I'm quite surprised with all the extra costs that come on top of the price that the seller asks for the hotel room or the bed and breakfast. So I get your point. Back to time to Momo, could you sketch your organization in numbers? So what is the revenue? How many people work there? Maybe the number of bookings you have, things
I
like
can
that.
make some statements in general sense,
Mm.
because the exact numbers I keep that to
Mm-hmm.
crowdfunders. But we are now doing several hundred bookings a month, but we need to do thousands. So we're still at the beginning, and we still have to grow a lot to become a viable business. So you can imagine that building a booking platform is not that simple. So from idea into a working platform, and then scaling that platform from one city. We started in Antwerp, scaling that from one city to 50 cities. Yeah, took a lot of time. So we're now, I think, 3 years working on it. So first year building a platform, and then 2 years growing from 1 to 50 cities. But still, we have to grow in numbers of bookings to survive as a company. So that is next year is going to be a really exciting year for us.
What is the so
Crossroads.
if you go from raising the 2 million to today, what was the biggest challenge? Was it the technology, building the platform? Was it getting sellers on the platform, getting consumers on the platform?
Getting consumers is the most difficult. I mean, building the platform. I was already. So I have also I'm partner at a design agency. So we build websites and apps. So that was not really a challenge. Of course, it's a lot of work. But I never had a question for, oh, is it gonna are we
That
gonna
was
make
your comfort zone.
it? Was my comfort zone. Um, but yeah, of course, getting sellers and getting travelers, that's also always a chicken and egg problem. So But because a lot of hotels were also mad with Booking.com, we got like and because we were steward owned, I think a lot of hotels in the end decided, okay, we're giving them a chance. But
And what
yeah,
is
the biggest challenge is to get travelers to the platform, because they're so used to go to Booking or Airbnb or Expedia, the big brands, and to get like a mental space so that people try something else. That's really the biggest challenge for us.
and what is the USP? So why should I, as a traveler, neglect Booking.com and go to Time to Momo?
So we have a local in each city, someone from the Netherlands or Belgium, and they make a city guide as well. So if you book with us, you get the digital version of that guide. So you not only have your hotel, but you also know how you are going to spend your city trip to make it a great trip. So with a lot of tips, which museums to go to, which restaurants, which bars. So we're like a booking platform and a travel guide in one.
Okay. And in terms of pricing, because if I'm honest, the only reason why I would go to Booking.com is because I think, that's my perception, that they are the cheapest. So do
I
you
think we
have
can
different?
I think we can compete on price as well. Hotel pricing is also difficult to compare. It's very hard to compare apples with apples, because you have so many different room types. They're priced differently each night. And then do you have with or without breakfast? Is it possible to cancel the booking or not? So there are so many variables that it's hard to compare. But I think it's more the price perception, and Booking does it really well. So yeah, that's something we really need to tackle.
And you started with a LinkedIn post that ventilated your concern about the impact of their shareholder profit maximization model and approach and decisions. So what makes Time to Momo different?
So that was also in my LinkedIn post. I said, let's do it in a non-profit way or something like that. And I didn't give it a lot of thought at the moment, but when the post went viral, of course we thought, what governance can we use to make sure that it cannot happen to us in the future? So then we learned about steward ownership, and for me that really clicked immediately. So it's a governance structure where the mission always comes first rather than shareholder value. So it's okay to make money, but not at any cost. So to ensure that those principles are leading, the profit rights and voting rights are separated. So that way shareholders cannot vote with their wallets in mind for quick profits at the expense of other stakeholders.
Okay. Time out. Let's deconstruct that. So when you had to launch the company, you had to think about the legal structure and the ownership model of the company. And a traditional, typical company, you have a shareholder structure, and the shares, they give you two rights, right? The right to vote in the annual meeting of shareholders, where you decide on strategy, I think, policy, and also who manages the operationally manages the company. And then the other right is that if the company makes profit, you get a dividend of that profit.
Yeah. So
So
economic rights and voting rights usually always come together.
yeah.
So ownership, and in steward ownership, those are separated. So the stewards run the company. They are in charge, and there can still be shareholders, and they can get dividends, but they cannot influence the mission of the company.
Okay. If it's I'm gonna take it one step back. I really want to deconstruct this topic so that everybody understands while listening this what it is. So first question. What behavior or what is it that makes the fact that someone owns a normal share with both rights, both the right to vote and the right for profit? What makes that a bad thing? What makes that something that we want to change?
Well, what you see is that you vote with your own wallet in mind. And if the company is really successful, then it's hard. Then it's hard to think about the long term. And we see that a lot of companies then also with Booking.com. I mean, the company is making billions, but also they had a lot of billions in debt because it was like corporate finance bullshit, if you ask me. But a company that's so successful should have been capable to overcome a corona crisis, but still they applied for support. I mean, so in order to make more long-term decisions, you don't want to combine the economic right with the voting right.
Yeah. So what you're saying is in a typical organization, there is the risk of a huge conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Where
it's not necessarily the case. I mean, there are a lot of family-owned businesses that do this in another way, but it is a risk, and especially I think with the big tech platforms, we see that there's a conflict of interest.
Yeah. Where they should use their voting right for the long-term sustainability of the company, but they actually use it to maximize the short-term benefit of their right to profit and dividend. Okay. And so in a steward-owned organization, you create two types of shares, one with voting rights and one with the economic rights.
And then one more with veto rights.
With veto rights. Okay, we'll come back to that one. So let's start first. So the typical share is split in two. And if I understand what you're saying, if I hold the voting right, I'm the steward and I govern the organization, but I cannot hold an economic right.
Indeed, and there's an exception for founders, but then so in our case, we have both rights, but the profit rights are limited.
Okay, yeah.
So that's the only exception, but you cannot hold unlimited profit rights and voting rights. That is not possible in most steward-owned companies. So.
Yeah. Okay, which makes sense. So that means if I am a steward and I have the voting right, I have no financial motivation apart from keeping the company financially healthy. Yeah. But my motivation will be mostly driven from manifesting the mission of the company. And if I hold the economic rights, I've invested money in the company, but actually I have no say whatsoever in the company. Okay.
not a formal
Uh,
setting. Of course, there's also with us. I mean, we try to inform our investors also regular, and we have meetings with them. Only they, and of course, they can do suggestions. I mean, they're still an important stakeholder, but not the only stakeholder, and
mm,
they cannot overrule me if I
yeah.
make a
So
that's
even if I would come in with €1 million of investment in time to Momo, um, I cannot gain enough power to do whatever I want to do with the company in my personal benefit. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, and then there's a third share. So we have voting shares, we have profit or economic shares, and then you have the voting share. What is the voting share?
Veto shares.
Veto share. Yeah, the veto share. What is the
That's
veto
only
share?
that's only in place to protect this structure, because any structure can be changed. So an external non-profit organization has the veto rights. So if we want to try to change the steward ownership structure, they have the veto right to block that.
Okay, so
So,
they're like
in
an
the future,
auditor, a steward ownership audit.
in
Yeah.
the future, if there maybe in 10 or 20 years, if the company still exists and is very successful, maybe there are new stewards and maybe they think, well, if I change the structure, I can make more money. I mean, and that is it's like a way to protect that from happening.
Yeah, so you safeguard that until the mission of the company is realized, at least. Maybe they define a new mission then, but you guard in time that the structure remains as it is. Yeah. Okay, interesting. What are the skills and the capabilities that you needed to acquire to set such a structure in place?
I think humility and a very good lawyer.
Wow. And did you find a humble lawyer?
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
Okay, wow.
But it was a lot of work. So um, we were one of the first companies in the Netherlands to do this. And there are also older companies that have done this before. Steward ownership, there are like several ways to do it. There's not one model. But there wasn't a lot of public information available about steward-owned companies in the Netherlands with Dutch law. So yeah, it took us a lot of time and our own money, because we had to do this before the crowdfunding. We had to start the business. So we invested a lot of our own money in it to come up with a structure. And it's complicated. I mean, it's not only the legal stuff, but also you need to think about tax issues, accounting issues. So I'm glad
Yeah.
that we finally did it. And
Yeah, that was my question. So,
we share it's public information now, so you can find our how's it called? All our legal documentation you can find online.
mhm. In hindsight, because you did it out of intrinsic motivation and a philosophy and a belief. Now you're 3 years down the line. Are you still pleased with the fact that you took that decision? And if so, what are the benefits? How do you experience working in a steward-owned company?
So I would definitely do it again. And I think it brought us a lot. Because we were one of the first, there was also a lot of attention for this model. And I think it convinced the hotels to join our platform. Because I mean, a lot of companies want to take on Booking.com. I mean, it's of course a very big market with a lot of business opportunities. But I think if we weren't steward owned, then I think it would be very hard to convince to convince the hotels joining.
Mm-hmm. And is it, as a founder, difficult to combine both shares, like being a steward, but also having the economic rights? Okay, they're limited. Uh, is that difficult? Do other stewards without profit rights or economic rights look at you differently? Is it?
No, I think that's also the beauty of steward ownership. It's not a non-profit, so you can still be a commercial company, and you can also get the rewards if your company is successful. Only it's not the rewards are limited. So both in amount, but also in time. So we can get a dividend payment only 10 times, so 10 years, and then it stops, no matter how much we got. And on the other hand, it's also limited in absolute sense. So I can never get more than 5 million euros.
Yeah. Well, a statement or a metaphor that comes to mind is that it remains a profit-driven organization with the philosophy of a free market capitalistic economy, but you reduce the steroids, or you take out the steroids.
Yeah.
Right. So
That's
it's
a
like
nice way
in
to describe it.
cycling for a decade, they drove just on APO, on steroids, and now they're going back clean. So that's basically you're riding back you're clean again. So at a certain point this year, we had scheduled this conversation, and then you send me a message, Nick, we're working on something big. Let's push the conversation till after that. What was that big thing?
The merger with Time to Momo. So before that we were called Moonback, and we were running the hotel booking platform, and Time to Momo is a publisher of city guides, and they are across the street from our office, and I know the founder already for some years. So and then when we had coffee one time, the conversation went into a merger, and then it went very quickly because we both saw the opportunities of the mix between a city guide and a booking platform. Because so they are market leader in the Netherlands when it comes to city guides. So they sell 150,000 units per year. And they know that if people buy a city guide, that they will usually go to that city and book a hotel and go to restaurants and buy museum tickets and so on. So, but the first thing people usually do is of course book their hotel. And we thought, well, this is a really good mix because they know which areas to sleep and what you can do over there, and we have a good booking engine. It made a lot of sense to combine those two.
Okay, were they also steward owned?
No.
So they're how has the introduction of these principles influenced the culture and the structure of the merged entity now?
Well, first of all, convincing investors to give up their voting rights, that was quite a challenge, but they did eventually. They had to. That was the only opportunity to do a merger because,
for you, it was a non-negotiable.
It was non-negotiable, and also because of the veto rights I mentioned. It was also it wasn't even possible, even if I wanted to. So
that's cool, because you could say, yeah, the veto right. Why? What does it make sense? And then you're not.
It makes sense.
You said, yeah, maybe in 20 years' time. Your example was in 20 years' time. Maybe they make a lot of money. The stewards want to change, but actually, within the first 3 years, you've found yourself in a situation where the temptation could have been to go for the merger,
Yeah.
and give up your principles,
Yeah.
basically. And there the veto right was,
Uh,
I don't think so.
so
Okay.
so and it's funny because those investors, I mean, even in practice, if they didn't have a majority stake, but still giving up the voting rights because they are so used to having both voting rights and profit rights, but they have to give up one. So in the end, they did, and I really think that's a big step from them. So yeah, and that we could manage to still be a steward-owned company. And it's really cool actually that it's possible to merge with a non. It's a good strategy to create more steward-owned companies.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. And
Maybe
how,
Booking wants to merge with us.
imagine, how did it, if it did, influence the employees of the other company and the culture of the other company? Did you see any changes there?
No, I don't think so because I mean, at Time to Momo, what was really important for them is to be. I mean, they have these locals in all these cities, and they have to be able to write whatever they want, and not if a restaurant. I mean, they get emails every day from restaurants, from hotels. Please put us in the next guide. And of course they never do that. So the tips aren't for sale. But that's also brought a company culture that really fits with the steward-owned mentality. So
Okay, yeah. So the
in
culture
terms of
was, there was already a lot of,
it,
yeah, yeah, a good fit. Okay.
it was more in the investor side that we had to really explain what it is and why we made these decisions, and that's we're still thinking about. I mean, we still want to do good also for our investors. I mean, we also have. So we did two crowdfunding. So we have 3,500 investors. So we just needed to explain to them that they're still an important stakeholder for us, but that they're also other stakeholders, and that it's not only about maximizing their shareholder value. And in the end, they gave up their voting rights. So that's really cool.
Yeah, yeah. I would love to talk to them and understand what exactly it was that made them give that up, because giving something up is never easy, even if you don't actually need the thing that you're giving up. Once you've acquired it, it still feels like a loss, you know.
I think what made us very attractive is that the platform is so much easier to scale than selling books.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, so they are the books are only in Dutch. So they're market leader in the Netherlands, and I think they have a really strong position also in Belgium. But beyond that, it's hard to scale it. But with a hotel booking platform, that is more easy. So I think that was what made it interesting also for them to merge.
Okay. And then on the investor side, I mean, that's the main challenge. Are they willing to give up their voting rights? And if they do, then they get a new type of share with only economic rights. What about the stewards? Because now you merge, so the company that Time to Momo, that well, Moonback, your company was Moonback, now it's, and the other company was Time to Momo, you merged, now it's called Time to Momo. What about the stewards from the first Time to Momo? You understand, you had two, you were
Yeah,
CEO, he was CEO, he had a management team, you had a management team. So
yeah,
how did that,
we had to make a new management team. So we also said goodbye to some of the people that were in the board of both companies.
so you also assembled a new team of stewards.
Yeah, so two stewards stayed the same, and one steward's changed. There's three stewards now.
What's the difference between a steward and an employee? I mean, does every employee in the company, is every employee in the company a steward or no?
No, like, so steward is yeah, comparable with a director or somebody in the board.
Yeah.
So somebody
Okay.
with voting rights.
Yeah. Okay. We're closing in on the end of our
And
conversation.
with some companies, if there are also examples of where a steward is more like a supervisory board member. That's also possible, that there's like an executive board, and then above that, like are the stewards. So, but because we're still a startup, I mean, it's kind of stupid to make like a really complex governance
Yeah.
structure. But it's possible to grow into that.
For people who are interested in diving a little bit deeper into the topic of steward ownership, where can they go on internet?
I will send you a link that you can share.
Okay.
Some information.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've tackled all the questions that I had for this conversation. How can we help? Maybe let's wrap up with that question. How can I and the people listening to this podcast help you become a force for good in the platform economy?
To book their hotel with us. It's very simple.
Very
So
simple.
if you want to change the platform economy, then and if you're considering a city trip, because that is our focus, we had to start somewhere, so we choose city trips. You can book with us in 50 cities in Europe, also New York and Marrakesh. But now all the big cities, you can find information about the areas, what to do over there. And if you book your hotel with us, then you get a really nice digital guide to make your trip really memorable.
Okay. And that's timetomomo.com.
Yep.
And Momo is MOMO, right?
MOMO, indeed.
Yeah. Okay. So you've heard it, folks. If you're planning a city trip for Christmas, there's only one place to go, and it's timetomomo.com. Niels, thank you so much for your time. I know you're a very busy man. I hope this conversation inspires a few, and if not many people. And I really wish you, I mean, I meant it when I say a force for good in the platform economy. I really wish you become that. So
Thanks, Nick, for the
thank you so
invitation.
much.